Governments build transit, but in this province, riders pay a big portion of what it costs to keep it operating. That's why the fare box matters so much and why fare evasion, particularly in the provincial capital, recently prompted an enforcement blitz. But as usual, nothing about transit is simple, as our assembled guests will explain. And they are Phil Verster. He's the president and CEO of the GTA's Regional Transit Authority, Metrolinx. Sheila Pisey-Allen. She's executive director of TTC Riders. That's a membership-based transit advocacy organization. Jay Pitter is here. She is a placemaker and co-editor of Subdivided, City Building in an Age of Hyperdiversity. She's also the John Bousfield Distinguished Visitor in Planning at the University of Toronto. And Sean McAuliffe is here. He is the Toronto Star columnist and co-founder of Spacing Magazine, and it's good to have everybody, I was going to say back, but this might be your first time here. For the rest of you, it's welcome back. Let's start by reading something from a few days ago, written by Adam Jambroni, who's a former chair of the Toronto Transit Commission. He wrote this in the Toronto Sun. It's obvious the current bump in fare evasion occurred in connection with malfunctioning Presto technology and the new fare gates. Something in the experience seems to have shifted riders' thinking away from the obligation to pay. Many riders got accustomed to situations where the system couldn't collect their fare or where those around them appeared to enter a vehicle without paying. This is his view that we can start by blaming Presto. And I want to get everybody's assessment on this. Fire away.
So I would strongly say that fare evasion is not about the technology you use, because we use Presto on Go, and on Go the fare evasion is about 2.7%. So with anything, it is about a technology and how you apply it. And there are many things that you can do to make sure your fare evasion is limited.
Hold off on that. We'll get to the solutions down the road.
And the way to look at it is, I do agree with the sentiment generally that there's sort of a trend towards higher levels of fare evasion. This is one of the reasons why on our Go services, we've increased our fare evasion, our reduction of fare evasion by putting more revenue protection officers in line. But yes, there is a trend, and it's a trend that we need to be intelligent in how we combat it.
But you're not blaming Presto for it?
No, and not blaming Presto on it. Presto uses technology, which is a 99% reliability figure, around there and higher, and technology is not the issue. This is a behavioral issue, not a technology issue.
Sheila, your view?
We think there's two issues underlying the fare evasion. One is the Presto card. You know, I think it's important to remember that Presto was imposed on the City of Toronto. The province threatened to withhold the gas tax if it wasn't accepted. And it's created a lot of new barriers to paying. One of them is that there's an exclusive distribution agreement for Presto at Shoppers Drug Mart. So if you don't live within walking distance of a Subway or a Shoppers Drug Mart, it's going to become much more difficult for you to access Presto cards and Presto tickets. The other piece, of course, is affordability. Many people in Toronto cannot afford to pay, and the city recognizes this through our low-income pass program, but it doesn't go far enough. At $123 a month, it's actually higher than many monthly passes in other Canadian cities.
Jay, your view?
I'm actually entirely unwilling to talk about fare evasion. I come to the subject matter using a transit equity lens, and in so doing, what I need to talk about is the fact that the system is grossly underfunded, and the conversation pertaining to fare evasion inequitably criminalizes those who, as was just said, who really lack access to the resources to pay the fare. And so what we're doing is criminalizing the poor.
Is it underfunded in part because $75 million worth of people aren't paying?
Absolutely not. It's underfunded because the province has abdicated its responsibility to public transit.
Gotcha.
And also because we are unwilling to stop prioritizing car-centric infrastructure in terms of design and maintenance.
Sean, your view on Adam Jambroni's point?
Anyone that's rode the TTC or even the Go network knows that Presto is a very imperfect technology. Whether it's 99%, we all have these experiences of getting on a streetcar and the thing doesn't work, and you can have fare enforcement officers in their paramilitary uniforms coming down, and you panic. I've had it myself when the machine didn't work. And it's these institutions have downloaded the trouble with Presto onto the rider rather than taking responsibility for putting people in this position.
A few things you may want to comment on.
Yes. I say this a couple of times. I'm a proud non-owner of a car, and I use public transit all the time. And I travel on Go, I travel on streetcars, I travel everywhere on public transit. And so I know also what the customer satisfaction ratios and the take-up ratios of Presto are. And I also know what some of the weaknesses are. And even though we're at 99%, which is, remember, our contractual commitment was 95%, that's not good enough for us. We are working closely with our TTC colleagues to continuously improve any possible way. If it's an early identification of a failing device, get it off for the next day, replace it with another device, we do that. Here's the thing. If you look at our customer service, customer satisfaction surveys, a large proportion of people have no issues with Presto, and then their satisfaction rate is about 88%. The area of our business where we have to do better, which I'm very public about, is we need to deal with customer complaints. You know, our uptake of Presto adoption on the TTC is above 70%. But when someone has a question that doesn't get resolved on the second or the third or even the fourth call, then we're not doing our job in our contact centers right. And so there's a lot we can do to address that level of satisfaction. But the usage is there, the transactions are there.
But the usage is there because you have to. I mean, there's not much other choice than using Presto right now. I can't use my London Oyster card right now. Like, it's sort of like you can hardly pay any other way right now.
But Sean, with usage goes our regular customer satisfaction survey, so we understand what are the issues customers are happy with and what they're not happy with.
So where does the range come from? Sorry.
I'm so sorry. How many people fill out these surveys? So, because based on my experience of working on transit projects, some of the most vulnerable people actually don't have time to fill out surveys. They're working a couple of shifts, they're running around with children, taking multiple trips. We know that women use public transit at twice the rate of men, oftentimes. And so I'm really curious about these folks with the time to fill out these surveys with these spectacular results.
That's a great question. So we have a team that does the surveys for us, and I can't immediately tell you how much time and effort they take to make sure they get opinions from everyone, but we take a very big sample of opinions. But your question is still a good one. We don't really take our surveys and segregate it by that type of personal circumstances to be able to differentiate. But we do our customer satisfaction surveys for our Go, our Up, and our Presto services very widely and very, very thoroughly every year. Your question's still a good one, though.
Can I get some numbers up here right now? Because again, for those who don't take the Toronto Transit Commission, streetcars or subways or buses, and who are maybe watching us from outside the capital city at the moment, you may not know these numbers. So let's just put this stuff up here, can we, Sheldon? The current adult single fare to ride the TTC is $3.25, $3.25. If you're a child under 12, you ride for free. And we should point out here that some clever people bring their kid to Shoppers Drug Mart and they get a Presto card in their kid's name and then they use it, and so they ride for free. This is one of the scams that's going on right now. The maximum fine for fare evasion is $425. The amount that the Toronto Transit Commission lost last year in fare evasion is north of $70 million. $70 million bucks, Sean, that's a lot of money. Are you troubled by that?
It is a lot of money, but that fine over $400, you compare it with blowing through streetcar doors when they're open, putting people's lives at risk, speeding down residential streets by schools, stealing parking. Parking is stealing. If you don't pay your parking, you get what, $30, $60? I haven't had a parking ticket in a while, but it's
$30.
Yeah, it's minuscule, right? And yet stealing $3.25, you could get this draconian fine. And I know the TTC says we don't compare that, but hello, the real people out here who are riding your thing compare it. And we see this deadly thing out there, this deadly activity being, kid gloves on drivers and this draconian stuff on riders who might get on and steal 325.
Maybe not talking exactly to that same point, because I follow exactly what you're saying. But on Go, for example, we've adopted what we call a zero tolerance approach. So that if someone doesn't have the right fare, we levy a $100 fine. But we've put a process in place whereby people can challenge and give reasons, and then we do away with that. What was really interesting, Sean, and I know it doesn't speak to your point, is that our level of customer satisfaction of other customers that recognize that there's fair enforcement has generally increased, because that is what our community expect when people travel. And then there are dealing with issues. There are very legitimate issues. I want to be really clear. I do think our contact centers can be much better dealing with complaints. But I've had complaints of someone saying, I'm not sure why I should pay a fine. I didn't have time to upload my cash onto my account. And I was going to miss the train, so I just traveled. Now, it's sort of the same as saying I'm going to a restaurant, I haven't got enough money, but I'm just going to have my meal. Because
let me follow up on that. Where is, I don't know, Sheila, do you think people are entitled to ride the TTC for free if they don't happen to have the exact change or they forgot their Presto card or whatever?
Well, it's a reality in our city that people cannot afford to ride the TTC, and we need to recognize that. And it's unfair for someone to get a $425 fine because a machine is out of order or because they can't afford the fare. And we need to put that 70 million estimate, right, into context. The TTC doesn't have an outrageously high rate of fare evasion. It's within the North American average. And the real evasion issue the TTC has is fund evasion. For decades, the TTC has been underfunded. It's the least subsidized major transit system in North America.
Always has been.
That's right. It means it's the most reliant on riders. That needs to change. We'd like to see the province come back to the table and resume funding operations for the TTC and local transit in Ontario.
Fair enough. But, I guess the way democracy works is if you don't like the subsidy that the current provincial government is offering, you can throw them out and put somebody else in who offers a higher subsidy. But at the moment, we are where we are. And I get back to the original question. Should people feel entitled to ride the TTC for free?
I think the TTC is a public service. We need to be having a bigger conversation about what we need to expect from the TTC and our public services. I think we need to be talking about the freedom to move within our city. And of course, it's not just about fares and being able to afford to get on. It's about frequent service, accessible service. That's what we deserve from our public services. And that's, I think what people are asking for when they say the TTC is underfunded. We need all levels of government to be contributing fairly.
Do you think people should feel entitled to ride the TTC for nothing?
Well, it's not nothing, right? Even if the TTC was free, if it was a free system, I don't like that word because we would pay for it through taxes, like we pay for roads, like we pay for sidewalks, like we pay for all this other infrastructure that we use without thinking about it, because we don't have to pay as we get on it.
But politicians, in their wisdom, for what it's worth, have decided that this is not a social service in the same way as you walk into the hospital and they don't hand you a bill on the way out. It's a different kind of service. It's more like a utility, where if you want to turn the lights on, you're going to have to pay for that. Or if you want to use the water, you got to pay for that. If you want to ride the trains, you got to pay for that.
But look what happens when the subway shuts down or we have a derailment, right? The economy of Toronto kind of comes to a halt almost. People can't get to work, right? This is a critical social service. It's not just a thing that can we can kind of dismiss easily.
I'm going to go a step further.
Sure.
Public transit is not simply a public service, it's in fact a human right. So being able to navigate your city freely and having options to do so is everyone's right, much like healthcare and education. And in fact, a number of human rights and civil rights protests have centered around public transit right across North American cities and the world.
Jay, that may be your view, and you certainly are obviously in a free country entitled to advocate for that view, but those are not the rules of the road today. The rules of the road today are if you want to use the system, you have to pay to use the system.
I completely understand what you're saying, and it is also true that historically, when the system has denied people their human rights, people have stood up and protested and advocated for those rights. I'll give you a very simple example. It's so hard for me to participate in conversations that, again, criminalize fare evasion. And I shared this publicly a few weeks ago on my Twitter, very thoughtful platform. And what I shared on Twitter is something that I have not shared in my adult life in public before. But I shared that, when I got to high school, that was when we all needed to take the bus to school. And almost every morning, I would have a friend come to the bus stop without a ticket. So I'm going to age myself. This is like the 80s. And so they would literally beg for somebody to take that little cardboard ticket and rip it in half, split it in half so they could get to school. And I will tell you that I did that on numerous occasions. I am by no means a criminal. If I were asked to do it again in that situation as a young person so that low-income kids like myself could access an education and get to school, I would do it a million times again.
You are clearly hearing around the table a view of this transit system that is not sort of comparable to a utility, but is rather, you've heard the expression, a human right, a social service. How do you react to that?
Jay's point about the impact of transit is indisputable. It's absolutely indisputable. Transit changed people's lives. Transit changed communities. Transit gives people opportunities to change and lift their lifestyle. In some jurisdictions, there are experiments happening about making transit free. And when you, and I know there's, especially in France, there's sort of an active train of thought in this direction. A thing to consider is that I have a 68% recovery rate, revenue against cost. If I put the $1 billion of operating costs I've got as further funds that must be supplied, that's $1 billion less that goes into the extensive expansion of the network that's actually required. We're at a stage where we not yet have enough infrastructure to properly serve this, this region and the city and all of the cities around us. So I'll be strongly biased towards saying, if we are going to look at anything such as what Jay is proposing, we must first get that basic infrastructure in place to be able to do that.
And how much does fare evasion hurt your ability to do that?
So fare evasion is in our case, because we enforce it differently, that's why I say it's not a Presto issue at all, because we enforce it and manage it differently, is only around 2.7%. So it's a relatively small amount of value. But I've got to say, why parts of Jay's point has strong resonance with me is our minister reduced the base fare from $4.70 to $3.70. Now that a dollar may not sound like much, but a dollar is a lot. And so when you see that fares are relatively more affordable, then there's a correlation with less fare evasion as well.
And one last thing here, the fines. You know, people have made a big deal about the fact that the fines are so much more dramatic than anything else that you could do on the roads. Are they too high?
So here's what's so good about your introductory paragraph that you read from the Star, is that the part of that introduction that really feels right is there's a behavioral trend in society happening currently, and the behavioral trend is that it's become sort of in some parts only. I was careful how I put this. In some, it's become more acceptable to have fare evasion than as a behavioral trait. So I think this is less about the fares and more about the behavior. And I just have to say this, what I'm seeing from our riders is that there's a sense of fairness, maybe a different principle to what Jay is talking about equity more, but fairness, equity, whichever you would like to call it, other riders feel it's not appropriate that some people aren't paying. And I think when that behavior starts to change, then we're on a better platform to think about any other changes we need to make.
Jay.
What I think is deeply inappropriate is that we live in a city that is so expensive and so that lacks so much affordability that people are having to choose between food and public transit fare at the end of the month. So the behavior that we're talking about is actually desperation, and it's out of survival, food or mobility. These things are human rights. And when you put people in a position where they have to choose between those types of things, they don't make, respectable behavioral choices.
Let me raise another issue here that is perhaps just as uncomfortable as the one we've been talking about. And Sheila, I'll go to you on this. Do you have any evidence that when the inspectors go on the trains or the streetcars or buses or whatever, and they are looking for possible fare evaders, do you know whether any racial profiling is going on?
Yes, and this is, we hear stories from people, and there is evidence right here in Toronto and from systems all across North America that fare enforcement disproportionately targets Black people and people of color, and that Black people and people of color also face harsher penalties for fare evasion. The Toronto Star uncovered that the TTC had been involved in carding on the TTC. 20% of the cards that were filled out were for Black riders. So we know that this is a problem, and it's not this problem is not going to go away by hiring more fare enforcement officers. We need to be making transit more affordable.
What do we know about this, Sean?
Well, we have lots of evidence and stories of people, of being kind of unfairly targeted. I think of it like, what if you got into your car every day, your Mazda 3 or whatever, and your little voice comes on and says, "Greetings, you criminal." Like this assumption that you are doing something wrong. And I think that's where a lot of the rage comes from people who pay their fare every day and have never fare evaded and are seeing this kind of treatment. And this is where I think the behavioral change has to come from the institutions, not necessarily the riders. Make this thing friendly and respectful to all the riders.
What are you hearing about racial profiling, Jay?
We know that there's a tremendous degree of not only racial profiling, but class-based profiling as well. And I think that when we're talking about the kinds of enforcement that we're looking at, those two things are inseparable almost, both racial and class-based profiling, and also profiling of individuals with mental health issues or individuals who seem vulnerable or who look out of place. And this is why an enforcement model versus a model that promotes equity and access for all is truly problematic. It's so profoundly dangerous.
Phil.
So our revenue protection officers are, just to your point, are very respectful. And I think you're absolutely right. It's part of doing fair revenue protection is part of the customer service you offer.
Friend, so you were saying that your officers are very respectful. Have you seen them enact enforcement on racialized or vulnerable peoples before?
I absolutely do. When I travel and I see them, I often walk with them. I often stop and talk to customers themselves directly. And I travel all the time. And I think we need to put, I still think the points you make, all of the points you make are 100% on the mark. It is from within the organization. And what we do, and the best way to deal with this from within your organization is to actively have an inclusive and diverse recruitment strategy so that your revenue protection officers, your frontline people reflect the demographics, the society they work in. And we have that.
Certainly.
And I think that's important. That's where it comes from within.
Certainly, there's some really good officers who, especially if they're traveling with the boss, they're gonna be on the ball. But there's enough stories of goonish behavior. When you ride the Up Express, they're wearing cute little uniforms. When you ride the Go, they're in more of a paramilitary uniform. When you ride the TTC, it's more of a paramilitary. Why is there a difference like that? If you ride the Via Rail, I took Via Rail to Windsor this weekend. There's a person in a suit who comes and politely looks at your ticket. There's like these differences in treatment are quite profound.
Yeah, the reason why we have special constables, which do our revenue protection service as well, is that they rotate during the day to pick up other duties as well. So it's not like they are dedicated service staff on the train itself for the whole day, but they can pick up other special constable duties during the day as well.
Like what? Like SWAT team? Like why do they look so militarized?
It's a special constable uniform. It's very often, I would say, the response from our communities and our people one of comfort from the fact that this is a special constable force.
No,
This
this is not the experience.
And
of
that's
transit
only
users.
that is only comforting to groups of people who haven't been historically over-policed and terrorized. Like it's only comfortable or comforting to those folks. To have a police presence. I think we all agree that public transit does not only shape lives, but it can really change lives.
Absolutely.
Significantly. We're not just trying to get from point A to B. We're trying to really access things that really shift who we are and can help us to reach our full potential. Why is enforcement a part of this process?
I think enforcement is a part of this process because it is everywhere where you have every jurisdiction I've worked in, the practice of having fair revenue protection, where you're expected to pay a fare, is really what is done. It's part of how transit operates. Every dollar that is properly invested means a dollar that's not gained from the taxpayer, from tax revenues. This is a conversation which is about policy as much as it is about anything else.
Let me play devil's advocate for a second, and Sheila, make the other side of the argument, which is the people who are honest and who can afford to and who do pay their fares, they're going to pay a disproportionate amount more to cover the fare evaders. That's fair to say, isn't it?
That's, I think, a big assumption because the TTC's estimate of how much is being lost, it's not it's within the North American average of fare evasion rates. And I think we need to ask, is fare enforcement working? Hiring more enforcement officers is not going to fix the fundamental issue of unaffordability and of presto malfunctions. That's what we're dealing with on the system. But what it is doing is causing a lot of harm. We've talked about that. And what other cities in North America are doing is that they're trending away from hiring more fare enforcement because they recognize the harm caused to poor people and people of color and Black people who rely on public transit. Let's look at Seattle, Washington, which is a very similar city to Toronto. 25% of the people who received fare evasion tickets were homeless or had housing instability, and they moved away from harsh fines. You can load $25 onto your card if you're found to have not paid your fare, or you can apply for the low-income pass. And we need to be shifting towards that approach, making transit accessible.
Well, let's ask the question: is it working? Are your inspectors working?
I would say again, your approach to the issue is 100% correct. Fare evasion or fare revenue protection is not the only answer for a whole host of factors that affect how people approach transit. And you are right. Fare affordability is a question in itself. And what you should look at as a city or as a region, you should look at things like what concessions do you have for people with specific circumstances. You're absolutely right. And your example of homeless people that travel, I remember in Scotland, I had a scheme where I offered homeless people free journeys when they are going either to places of getting support or where they were going for interviews, for example. So on cases like that, that is where concession type scheme must kick in and must help the community. So I'm not for one moment suggesting fare enforcement is the answer for getting your fare structure right. That's why the example of where our minister took the base fare down to make go more affordable, because $1 down on the base fare means $1 down on the overall journey. So I think you're right. All of those things must be brought into play.
We should point out here, Phil Verster is here speaking on behalf of Metrolinx. He doesn't speak on behalf of the TTC. We did ask somebody from the TTC to participate in the discussion today, and the request went unanswered. So that's why nobody from the Toronto Transit Commission is at this table here today. Let us, in our remaining moments here, just ask all of you for a bit of a roadmap forward. We've heard a lot of what you all see as the shortcomings of the system here. What ought to be done? Start us off, Sean.
we need to get more people out of cars. There's too many cars. You're not going to build enough roads to cure congestion. So getting people onto transit. So it has to be fast. It has to be as immediately there as getting into your car and going, and it has to be frequent. You can't wait for it. And
So are you
it
in
has to be
support?
friendly.
Are you in support of Doug Ford's announcement the other day, where he said, if we want to get more transit built, we need the federal government to step up and pay 40% of the bill?
Theoretically, yes, but we did have a fully funded thing 10 years ago that would have been built out now in Scarborough, but that his family kind of helped kill. So I have a hard time dealing with that, knowing the history of transit politics in Ontario.
Okay, Jay, how about you? What ought we to be doing now?
I think that we should be mindful of people's dignity. When people are traveling around the city, they should feel safe and seen and respected. And I think that whatever solutions we use going forward, I think that dignity and equity should be centralized because, again, transit and mobility in our city is indeed a human right. And I know that if I didn't have very early access to public transit and being able to see just, what different types of neighborhoods looked like and the possibilities that existed there, if I didn't get to school and get to job interviews and internships, I would not have the full and rich life that I have today.
Sheila, what's your view on what ought to be done?
Well, in addition to what Jay and Sean have said, a really quick way to improve transit tomorrow is to prioritize surface transit, so implementing more bus lanes so that it can become more frequent. We need the provincial government to come back to the table and fund operating costs so we can start lowering fares. But we also need more vehicles on our streets. So the TTC has a plan to buy 60 new streetcars, 1,500 buses, but it's not fully funded. So we need all three levels of government to contribute to more vehicles and operations funding so that transit can be frequent, you can rely on it to get to where you need to go, and that it's affordable for everyone.
So I infer from your comment that you support Premier Ford in his efforts to get more money out of the feds.
The feds do need to come to the table to fund transit, especially with the vehicle needs that the TTC has. But in terms of the Scarborough plan, Scarborough would be better served by a transit network, not 3 stops that do not go east of McCowan.
That train has left the station, if I may use a terrible pun. That debate is over and everybody's going forward regardless of what the evidence points to. It's going to be a 3-stop subway, apparently. How about you? You want to weigh in on this, on what ought to be done at this stage?
It's indisputable that transit offers solutions that are actually less expensive than car ownership. And I 100% agree with the sentiment on car ownership. And that it enables different parts of our society to change dramatically their access to jobs, opportunities, and even just social events, and to get to see family. And so transit is an absolute game changer.
Do you think we ought to move, though, to seeing transit as a social service, maybe even a basic human right, as opposed to like we see it today, which is a utility, like turning the lights on or having the water?
So I don't. And I don't see it like that because I see the practice where we have parking associated with our GO stations that's for free, and I see everything that's for free suffers from what economists call the tragedy of the commons, that anything that's free gets overused for the wrong reasons. So I think implicitly, transit must be run as a business. It's an extremely intense commercial business, and therefore I think there's a quid pro quo of payment for service. And I appreciate that's a difficult conversation, but I'm just talking as someone that's more focused on how to get the maximum efficiency and effectiveness out of this. There's a very practical aspect. Any money that we don't recover in fares means less money available for capital investment. And I think for where the region is currently, we need to keep on investing, do all of the things to get more transit out there, because that will, in effect, benefit many more people.
Well, I think I also hear these other guests saying, though, that you could use your good offices to lobby the provincial government to get greater subsidies for the current system that's in place.
I've heard that as well.
Is that an option for you?
I can tell you quite honestly, my business drive in Metrolinx and GO is to have less subsidy. I want to run it more as a business. I want to get to a place where I have full revenue recovery, and that'll give policymakers choices what to do with that approach. And policymakers are the right people to decide about this. So when our minister decides to lower the base fare, she had very strong good policy reasons for that. We advised how much revenue that would gain us because more people would travel. And there's always that symbiotic relationship between policy and business. My objective is to therefore, when I say to get to a place without a subsidy, that's by getting efficient and effective and running it as a clockwork operation as much as we can.
I think you may be off Jay's Christmas card list now.
I'm sorry, Jay.
I thought I was bringing you over. I'm so shocked
you were
by
working
this
on me
answer.
there.
Apparently not. Well, we got a couple of minutes left here, and I should ask Phil, taking advantage of the fact that you're in that chair, COVID-19 is all over the news these days.
Yeah.
And does Metrolinx, either on the GO trains, or do you know whether TTC has any particular policies in place to ensure that the rolling stock is as germ-free as it can be?
Oh, massive program, yeah. So on the 26th of January, we launched our incident control team. We've got 25 people throughout my organization. We have business continuity processes. Sounds boring that I know this, but it is 65 different business continuity processes that we put in place. We are cleaning our trains with antiviral, antimicrobial, semi-permanent sort of surface cleaning to make sure, and that we're doing in our buses, on our up train, as well as on our GO trains. We've deployed literally thousands of hand dispensers, hand dispenser lotion, alcoholic dispensers. We have procured respirators, disposable respirators as well as permanent respirators. We have a very active program to inform our teams of the situation. What we don't publish, which I can share with you, is we have a very, very close working relationship with our teams, and we've had 28 people under self-isolation. We said, I feel unhealthy. We take them out of the front line and put them in self-isolation. And our focus here is to look after our people. Our people are fantastic. They interface to the public. They deal with very difficult situations, but also to keep on providing a service for as long as possible and to take care that we can do that.
And that is our time. Thanks to all of you for coming into TVO tonight. Phil Verster from Metrolinx, Sheila Pisey-Allen from TTC Riders, Jay Pitter, placemaker, Sean McAuliffe, Toronto Star columnist. Great to have you all here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario. CPA Ontario is a regulator, an educator, a thought leader, and an advocate. We protect the public. We advance our profession. We guide our CPAs. We are CPA Ontario. And by viewers like you. Thank you.